Pitchers and catchers were supposed to be reporting for spring training today. This is video from last year, I guess. But that is not happening. Major League Baseball's second longest work stoppage in history dragging on Saturday, MLB presented the Players Association with a new core economics proposal as the two sides continue to work through collective bargaining talks. The meeting lasted approximately an hour, the first meeting in 11 days, the fifth in-person bargaining session of the owner-initiated lockout. The MLBPA will take time to fully review the proposal, although they came away unimpressed, according to reports. Now, Commissioner Rob Manfred, he's confident the season's going to start on time, but given the need for 21 to 28 days of training and an additional time to report and go through COVID protocols, an agreement by the end of the month or early March is likely necessary if they're going to start on time. But we'll start scratching the days off the list as the lockout drags on. And for more on the state of things between the owners and the players, let's now welcome in former MLB executive Jim Bowden, who's following everything to do with this lockout. Jim, as we pass the pitchers and catchers reporting deadline and it not happening, there seems to be, I don't want to say a sense of dread, but maybe that this thing is going to hurt the season. How significant is it that we're still at an impasse?
Well, I think the good news is that everybody in baseball gets to spend Valentine's Day with their loved ones, right? That normally doesn't happen in baseball. So I think that's a good thing for the players, the front office, the commissioner's office, everybody. So I think that's a really good thing. The negotiations aren't going well. There's a huge difference between how the two sides are approaching this. And that's the problem. I mean, since the lockout, the clubs have really given a lot to the players in this negotiation. And unfortunately, on the players' side, they really haven't done much at all, bringing back memories of when the clubs negotiated with Marvin Miller and Donald Fear. So the strategy on both sides, very unique, but there is no traction right now. Now, let's look at the bright side. I can see a pathway to a deal. And when there is a deal, it's only going to take 2 or 3 days to get the players into camp. And as long as they're in camp by, say, 28 days before scheduled opening day, we will have baseball on time. But we need the players' side to make a move here because they're just right now just stonewalling.
Jim, what are the chances, really? I mean, based on what's happening right now, that things are actually going to start on time for you?
It's going to take one of the two sides to make a significant concession. You know, as an example, they're $85 million apart on a pool of money for the non-arbitration eligible class. That number has to move dramatically. When you talk about the penalties for the CBT, that's going to have to get reduced and the level number has to go up. So it's going to take compromise from both sides. And right now we're only seeing compromise from the one side. But I'll tell you, I've been through negotiations like this most of my career, most of my adult life. And honestly, these kind of deals can come together really quickly once one of the two sides, instead of negotiating by centimeters or inches, when one of the two sides makes a big jump, all of a sudden a deal can get done really fast. And that's what I think is going to happen in this particular negotiations.
Jim, I'll be honest here. I tried to read the proposal put forth to the PA on the weekend, but it was like me giving Amanda ideas for lunch. After a sentence or two, it was like, no. I mean, simplify this for me like I'm Michael Scott from The Office learning about a lemonade stand.
Okay, so let me start with this. From the players' perspective since the lockout, the only thing they've really done is say that they'll keep free agency the way it is at 6 years, which, by the way, has been in place since 1976. Besides that, the players really haven't moved at all. Now, let's talk about what the clubs have done. They've agreed to increase the draftee bonus pool by $20 million per year. So that every player that is slotted would get an increase. They've agreed to a $15 million pool from the Central Fund, which doesn't exist in the past CBA. And that is significant because let's take a pitcher like Corbin Burns, who won the Cy Young last year for Milwaukee and was paid $608,000. With this $15 million pool that the clubs have agreed to, his salary would be $2.6 million instead of $608,000. Or take Jonathan India of the Reds, who was Rookie of the Year, and he made $570,000. He would have made $1.35 million in this proposal. Now, what I want you to to listen to is that the players are asking for 6.5 times that. It's just an absurd number. Now, in terms of the universal DH, both sides have agreed to it. It's a non-issue. Players do benefit from that. It's, you know, the American League last year, the average DH made $9 million. So that is a plus. The clubs have agreed to eliminate the qualifying offer. So in the past, players that got a qualifying offer, the teams would lose a draft pick if they signed the player. Well, historically, only 2 teams that were a payor ever actually signed those free agents. So this is going to help them in terms of free agency. The club has proposed 14-team playoffs. Now, why is that important? Because that's 100 more players that get to be in the playoffs, and all of the playoff money goes into a pool that the players benefit from. Now, the players want to stop tanking. Okay, the clubs have said we'll have a lottery system for the top 3 picks, and the players have said 8. Okay, there's a compromise there at 4 or 5, right? That's pretty easy. The clubs have offered to increase the minimum to 3 tiers. Okay, it was at $570,500. They've agreed to increase it to $615 for 0 class, $650 for 1 class, $725 if you're non-arbitration eligible in that 3rd year. So what have the players come back with? $775. Well, if you look at history over the last 5 years, the minimum only went from $535 to $570. So the clubs are offering a huge bump from the way it's been. Again, the players are reaching at a ridiculous level. From the CBT perspective, I'm on the side of the players here. They want $245. The clubs have offered $214. I think the deal should get done at $240 with less penalties, because right now it does act as a soft cap. So I think that's one area that needs improvement. But if you follow most people's narrative in the media or the fans, they're all blaming the owners, right? And they're the ones that locked them out, so I get it. But whether it's a lockout or a strike, we need a deal. And when you look at the facts, all the clubs have done is give, and all the players do is demand without negotiating. And that's the part that really perplexes me here, because the clubs really are offering them today such a great plus from the last CBA that the players are going to win this negotiation. The clubs won the last 2 CBAs. The players, if they accept what's on the table, are going to win this CBA, but they want more, and more. And I got to tell you, greed does not look good. And at some point, the media and the fans are going to turn and look at this thing a lot differently. But here's the way Tony Clark and Bruce Meyer can fix it. Their next proposal, instead of accusing the clubs of underwhelming offers, of which theirs are worse, why don't they make an overwhelming offer to the clubs and make a stand? Then the PR can turn in their way. But until the players start to move like the clubs have, we're just going to sit here.
Great stuff as always, Jim. Our former MLB executive, Jim Bowden, giving us the latest on the work stoppage in the majors. Jim, we appreciate you as always. And of course, for more on the situation in the majors, insight and opinion from another guy who's been through it, check out Nothing Personal with David Sampson. David, like Jim, has that executive insight, but David also has his own informed opinion. Download and follow Nothing Personal with David Sampson wherever you get your preferred podcast audio. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.